Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. We have, this weekend, definitely the end of the World Series because it could end tonight. It could end on Saturday night. Is there a day in between? Is it off today? Or because of the rain
It's an
out?
off day.
It's an off day. Okay, so
It was
Saturday.
a scheduled off day. So they never switched up anything when there was the rain delay. So this was going to happen
So
anyway.
Saturday, Sunday. So you could have some. And I think I mentioned this to you before. You could conceivably have Game 7 of the World Series up against Sunday Night Football. And gee, what do you think will win? Sunday Night Football will kick its ass in the ratings, even though it's a regular season game. It probably will win the ratings.
It will. Was that Game 7? Might not.
Well, I mean, there'll be a look-in audience. I know in New York.
Yeah, because Game 7 is different, Mike. And so I have a little hope Game 7 would get a lot higher.
In New York, let's just say there'll be a lot of hate watching because there'll be.
But Philly, there's no Eagles. They played last night, so it would be a massive audience.
Right. The NFL, obviously, with our two teams meeting up on Sunday afternoon, and many.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, you're just wearing that hat because you just forgot what hat you were putting on. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just accidental.
Yeah, there you go. Start us off with the pre-show.
Yeah, so there's AEW wrestling. We've chatted about it at times, and so there's a rumor that CM Punk has sort of worn out his welcome. You can't get a good feel for what he's done, but Matt Hardy has spoken out against him. Chris Jericho said he won't wrestle where CM Punk is. It's kind of interesting because you never used to get this kind of information out there for wrestling leagues, especially when I was growing up. Like, even if a guy was a jerk, generally his job was safe and there was no public outcry. Now, granted, Hulk Hogan was never the most liked guy, and you always heard little things here and there, but he brought in money so that, so Vince McMahon never cared. It's kind of interesting now that with a guy like this, that he could just, be asked to leave, or they just cut they cut him and just pay him because other wrestlers have turned on him.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this in WWE with certain wrestlers whose personalities behind the scenes were not well liked, and then they basically become pariahs. I mean, Brock Lesnar didn't exactly get along with everybody. He ended up going to UFC.
Yeah, but he's come back millions of times.
But I think everything is short-lived with him. I remember the one time he was there and he hurt a wrestler because he's not a very good, he's a physical specimen, but he's not a great wrestler.
He was a good collegiate wrestler. I think that's what he did. But as far as this, it's different.
He did something where I think it was Shawn Michaels or something like that, where he hurt him badly because he did something wrong and landed the guy on his neck or something like that. And, that didn't make him the most popular guy in the world. So, yeah, I mean, and hey.
This is what came off of a website called Wrestling Features. Chris Jericho told CM Punk that he was a cancer to the locker room. Now, again, this is a wrestling locker room we're talking about. We've all, if you've never watched like Dark Side of Wrestling, watch it. There's a very dark side to, some wrestlers' lives. And
Chris Benoit.
So it's interesting that he is sort of trying to police that. And, I find it very interesting. So just keep an eye out. There'll probably be some big headlines about it. ESPN may even pick it up.
Yeah. Are you sure that they weren't talking about Sean Avery? Oh, just kidding. Just have to mention this because we mentioned it early on in the show yesterday, and I just have to I can't applaud the Brooklyn Nets because they were really slow on the trigger, and that was the thing I was pissed off about yesterday. And after 5 days, Adam Silver came out and called Kyrie Irving on the carpet, and then yesterday the Brooklyn Nets suspended him without pay, and then he put out a lame press release afterward stating that he was not anti-Semitic. I didn't even bother reading it because I'm sure he didn't write it. I'm sure it was his.
No. It was crafted.
Yeah, it was definitely crafted. So, I mean, honestly, it's like, there have been people in every professional sport and in politics and in other aspects of life who have said things they later regret. But Kyrie Irving seems to do it on an ongoing
Yeah, but
basis.
this is different though. This isn't saying something. This is like showing a book. I guess he talked about the documentary. I'm not sure how the documentary part came about.
Right.
And still double down on that. But Kevin Durant was disappointing too, because before the shoot around, he did not come out very strong, and then after the shoot around, obviously somebody got to him, and then he started talking about anti-Semitism and everything else. And this is the problem with all of this, Mike.
Kevin, hey Jake. Kevin Durant is a spineless jellyfish. That's what he is. I'm sorry. He going back to some of Kyrie's other situations with Kyrie's other situations with not taking the vaccine and taking off because of the riots in Washington, things that have nothing to do, like every other player in the NBA played before the riot, either the Black Lives Matter riots or January 6th. But Kyrie Irving was too sensitive to not play. And I had problems with him back then. Now he says something that, is just absolutely dumb. And he's after a while, getting called on the carpet for it. And he absolutely should. So I'm just saying this. It's like, I hope there is a significant penalty. I don't think there are many teams in the NBA that if this guy is a free agent, that they're bringing him in. He better save the millions of dollars he's earning over the next couple of years, because I have a feeling he's going to end up playing in China or some of the Stefan Marbury. He's wearing out his welcome with his antics.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to Joe Morello in the chat room, I understand that a lot of times people try to escape politics by listening to sports, but this isn't politics. This is actually everyday life, and Jewish people go through this all the time. And actually, a lot of times when someone like a Kyrie Irving pretends to be like a scholar, it usually goes this way. And a lot of times when someone like Kevin Durant says it's better to remain quiet.
Yeah, he's an enabler.
Yeah, this is what happens. People in power, people who have an audience, people who have a big footprint in this world can make a difference and actually speak out against it in stronger terms, not just saying love to everybody. Love to everybody means nothing to me.
Right.
So, and I'm just saying this is something that we've all dealt with in our lives if you've been Jewish and in other walks of life. So that's why it's being brought up this way. It's not really politics. But
I apologize if I offended you. It's not an apology. That's basically saying, it should be a blanket apology for saying something stupid. And Joe, we try to stick to sports here. But the problem is that politics and religion bleed into sports, and you sometimes you can't avoid it. So we'll get talking about hockey. Of course,
it's not going to be a great show.
The first story that we're going to talk about isn't about hockey. Is about we'll
real life.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, November 4th, 2022.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, released about 2 hours ago, a story that I don't think we were expecting. And when I heard about this story, my first reaction is the Boston Bruins one-upped the Montreal Canadiens. And we talked about the Logan Mailloux signing when the Canadiens did that at the beginning of the season, and I understand, like, some people are saying, well, it was a mistake that a young guy made, and we let's forgive him and let's see what happens. Well, the Boston Bruins signed former Coyotes draft pick Mitchell Miller to a 3-year deal this morning. Now, for those of you who have forgotten what happened, Mitchell Miller was a 4th round pick of the Coyotes in the 2020 draft. He was ranked, like, if nothing happened off the ice, talent-wise, he was probably what, a second-round pick?
No, he could have been a first rounder. He could have been a late first rounder.
So
somewhere between 25 and the end of the round.
And I'm pretty sure that 2020 draft, that was the draft that Arizona had traded a number of picks to get Taylor Hall. So they didn't. I think that was their first pick in that draft, and that was the draft. After the bubble, this is the draft that was held at. I think the mailman's there for us. Now they drafted him, and then it came out after he was drafted that when he was in 8th grade, he was convicted of, and maybe I think the Coyotes may have known about this. He was convicted in 2016, so it was when he was in 8th grade, of assault for bullying and abusing a developmentally disabled, easy for me to say, classmate. Now he was signed today, and in the statement released, it says, "When I was in 8th grade, I made an extremely poor decision and acted very immaturely. I bullied one of my classmates. I deeply regret the incident and have apologized to the individual. Since the incident, I have come to better understand the far-reaching consequences of my actions that I failed to recognize and understand nearly 7 years ago. I strive to be a better person and positively contribute to society."
Okay, so there's another side to it. I do want to mention to the audience. Normally, I can just give my dog something to chew on, and it's fine. But there are workmen here at my house, so can't control that all the time. Anyhow,
I'll be talking a lot more when the barking happens.
Right. The big deal here is JD Burke, who works with me. He's the editor at EP Ringside. He had some things to say about Mitchell Miller because he hears stuff, and one of them talked about how he embarrassed himself in front of our staff, a scout said during his draft year interview. So that's something where he wasn't in 8th grade. So then, of course, there's always somebody like, give him a second chance. There's, he's just in 8th grade. And so on my feed, this is what JD said. He was very young, and he committed these uniquely heinous incidents of racial violence, taunting, and physical abuse. Yes. And then in his draft year, showed no remorse for said events and failed to deliver an apology that rose to the occasion of his actions. That was at 18. Now you know why a lot of teams stayed away for that reason. I can't tell you the Bruins' motivation for this other than they don't have a lot of defensemen in their organization anymore, and this is a move of desperation.
And Elliot Friedman said that they were not the only team that was in on him. So there were a number of teams.
Well, I mean, there's always stupid actions. And so it's one of those things where you can't let it go in the sense that when you're signing hockey players to play for a team, you are also dealing with character issues.
Right.
And there's a lot of people out there that have felt that he hasn't really corrected those issues. So based on that, I think it's a horrible signing. And I just think the Bruins are short-sighted here, and their desperation for a future defenseman is just dumb. That's all.
Right. Now, Miller is a right-hand shot defenseman. As it was said, the Coyotes renounced his draft rights. He played last season for Tri-City in the USHL, scored 83 points in 60 games. So that's what the Bruins see is an opportunity with this talent, questionable decision making when it comes to what he had doing over the in his youth and what you just talked about in terms of dealing with the as an 18-year-old. We welcome Jan Levine to the show, and we want to talk about a couple of the games last night, Jan, and we'll start with the Rangers and the Bruins because I think most of us expected the Bruins to be the team that would fall behind that core four group in the Atlantic that made the playoffs. All of them had 100 points, but if Detroit or Ottawa or Buffalo had playoff aspirations, it looked that Boston would be the team that would drop off because of Bergeron aging, Krejci coming back, we're not knowing what he had left, injuries to Marchand and McAvoy and Grizzly. And now they're 10-1, and they walk in at Madison Square Garden and win 5-2 last night. I mean, first, give me your opinion on the Bruins, because right now they look like a freight train.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you said, 10-1 right now. They played last night without McAvoy. I mean, Hampus Lindholm is doing his Charlie McAvoy impersonation, I think, now with the goal and 3 assists he had in the comeback against Pittsburgh and the empty net goal and assist he had yesterday. I believe he's up to 18 points in 21 games since coming to the Bruins, which is remarkable. I think I saw a stat. He's never had more than 35 plus points in a season with Anaheim, and look at what he's doing now. So clearly he's been a tremendous acquisition for them, and they signed him long-term, and there were questions about the deal, and I still wonder how that deal will age. But for now, he's doing a really good impersonation, and just the rich will get richer. McAvoy is supposedly practicing and could be back within the next week or so. So that helps them. I mean, Carlo has been very good. As you mentioned, David Krejci coming back has been a huge boom for them as a second-line center. Last night, I think it was the bottom six that had a pretty good night. Nick Foligno had a good night. Charlie Coyle had a good night. They did a really good job of, first of all, limiting the Rangers' opportunities. They only had 19 shots, and it's been an issue with the Rangers generically in terms of shot generation to a certain extent. But last night, Boston did a nice job. I thought they did a really good job of creating speed through the neutral zone and creating odd man rushes. I mean, you look at 2 of the goals, both of them came out in terms of odd man rushes. So both of them came with them taking advantage of a Rangers team that also losing Ryan Lindgren didn't help. And he was kind of a cheap shot on my Pasternak. It was a clean hit that Schneider hit him with. And then later on, it was a blindside hit or a retaliatory hit that kind of knocked him out. May have been a whiplash effect, though no word yet in terms of how long, if he might miss Sunday's game or beyond. But Boston's getting scoring, balanced scoring. Taylor Hall has kind of refound his New Jersey style of play again. He's looked extremely good, as was just posted. Pavel Zacha. It's been a nice acquisition coming over. I think it's for Eric Haula, which looks like a steal right now. So Boston's clicking on all cylinders. And I think more importantly, what's happened is Linus Ullmark has been phenomenal between the pipes. I mean, that if you look at it, right, I thought Jeremy Swayman was going to be the number one. I mean, I thought it was pretty clear coming in. I think everybody thought Swayman, and Ullmark said, not so fast, my friends. I'm still a solid goalie, and Swayman's now out week to week. With Kincaid called up right now, you got to figure they're going to ride Ullmark pretty heavily, at least until Swayman comes back. And Ullmark has shown that he's up to the task right now. So Boston at 10-1 is mildly surprising when you look at the record. But then if you look back at the way they played in the games and the style of play and what's ongoing with that team overall, it probably shouldn't come as a huge shock that they're that good so far.
Yeah, this game. Okay, I was just gonna say, Mike, I could just piggyback off what Jan said. This game, in the chat room they said that backhand by Pasternak was sick. It was. I mean, he had literally this much to score on it.
It was a top shelf, far corner, above the shoulder, over Shesterkin. Look, part of that is luck. Look, I would say it's skill, and yes, it is skill, but to hit a size of a pea from that distance is skill, but a little luck also clearly there as well.
Here's my little rant against Gallant, though, and I've been noticing this the last 3 or 4 games. When their offense disappears, I think it started when Gallant said, listen, we need more forecheck in here. Forecheck. Well, they did that to the point where against the Flyers, they were lacking a lot of offense, even though they had shots. I mean, the Flyers always give up shots, but they just didn't play the way I felt like they normally would play. And in this game, I thought like after the Fox goal, that could have charged them up, and it didn't. And Boston just took it to them. I think it was the bottom 6 of the Rangers that hurt them. There's no question, because that they're at home, so that shouldn't be a bad matchup at home, but it was. Like you said, Lindgren being out always hurts. That's him leaving the game is bad. But in the end, I do think when you have a coach that preaches all this forechecking, you've got to watch that, because not all these guys are defensive specialists. Zibanejad isn't. Panarin isn't. They've got 4 or 5 guys that aren't. And, like where Lafreniere has improved defensively, that's great. But again, you're going to need the offense more than you're going to need this great forechecking. So, there's a fine line for that.
Yeah, let me just add a quick piece, Mike, on that. So, I mean, I will also note that they were missing Philip Hedl yesterday, which is a big loss, because Hedl's actually been good.
Mm-hmm.
As pointed out, I mean, Russ, you've read, and Mike, you've read, I've been kind of railing on the bottom 6 to begin with. I personally railed on them bringing back Reeves when they signed him last year for a year at $1.75 million. I also wanted Tyler Mott brought back, and I think Mott brought a speed element that's lacking to a certain extent. He was a perfect bottom six guy.
And
VC's been okay.
And
VC's been pretty good. Sammy Blais still trying to find his form after coming back from an ACL.
I mean,
They're
let's
also
be real
missing-
about Sammy Blais. Is there really a form there? Like
Well, I mean, I'm just saying more. Let me rephrase that. Some of his speed, he's still kind of getting back to where he should be to an extent. Well, I would say Kravtsov being out is hurt, but I don't think Kravtsov has looked particularly good. But it does balance out the lineup, having those guys. And Ryan Carpenter, in my opinion, has given them absolutely nothing right now, which is why
it's a shame.
I think Gustav Rydal in the minors is actually going to be up before too soon. He's playing decently down in Hartford. I think Will Coyle is going to be up before too long because you can use him as a bottom six guy because both of them are not making a lot and other guys will end up on waivers.
But he's going to slow him down. Like, I know he's a big guy. Will he get to the crease at the NHL? I don't know. I'm not sure he's going to be the answer.
But he's better. He's better than what they're running out right now in the bottom six.
Yeah, but they're going to make a trade eventually. They
don't have a lot of cap room to do it.
No,
right
but they
now.
will. They'll slog through this for a while. It won't be pretty. It won't.
There's just a couple notes on the Bruins before we go to the other game that I want to talk about. The Bruins have an innate ability to find a guy who off the scrap heap who ends up, producing for them. And I don't know if it's going to continue, but like AJ Greer, who's been a journeyman, he's got 6 points in 9 games right now. He's big. He's never been shy to throw his weight around, but right now they're getting production out of AJ Greer, which is just something. And I do think, Russ, maybe they knew Swayman was hurt when they made the Mike DiPietro for Studnicka deal.
No, they may have known that. Listen, Greer, I remember. I want to say this is going back. I want to say maybe he's a Boston College guy, but I think he was at one of those places. And
was BU maybe, but I could be wrong.
BU, it's one of them.
BU.
Yeah, BU, and he was a pretty good player. I remember seeing him there, but. Yeah, the Bruins can do this. I think Montgomery has brought back structure there. And, again, their top line is also a line that could coach the hell out of the rest of the team and help a coach. There's very few teams that have those kinds of leaders. Just having Marchand back on the ice, you saw the difference there. I forget where it was, but it was somewhere in the second period where Marchand almost had a great break on the net. And one of the Rangers defensemen had to make a last-minute effort on it just to stop it. Just having him there makes a big difference.
Okay, a couple other New York area games to talk about before Jan has to go. Jan, the Islanders beat the Blues 5-2 yesterday. Part of that game was Jordan Binnington being Jordan Binnington and brushing up against Ilya Sorokin during as the teams were heading to the locker room. Binnington just has a habit of getting ornery with the other team. Maybe it's something to do with Nazem Kadri taking him out last year in the playoffs, but he's done it before then. But the Islanders score 5 goals against the Blues. The Blues are reeling right now. The Blues are in trouble. They're 3-6. They're not doing very well. I'm still not convinced the Islanders have enough offense to make the playoffs, but they score 5 goals against Binnington last night.
Well, I'm going to take Binnington because I have him in my fantasy league, so I'm busy cursing him every night.
There we go. Fantasy mention.
There you go. I'd love to blame Binnington, but that defense has been wolf bad. I mean, their blue line and their defensive structure overall. I mean, look, Binnington has got, 4 of the goals, I think, almost came from like right in front of the net. I mean, one of them was an empty netter, but kind of hard to stop it given the vast amount of room that the defense is allowing the offensive players versus St. Louis. I mean, Islanders have been, look, Brock Nelson has had a tremendous season. I mean, he's been phenomenal as a second line center. You've gotten a ton of production out of Anders Lee so far. Kyle Palmieri is starting to show some signs, though I still don't think he's going to score enough to help that team. Barzal has picked up his game a little bit. Romanov has proven to be a great acquisition. He's basically hitting everything and blocking everything in sight, which has helped them. Noah Dobson is having another fine year. I mean, Pulak has been okay. I think of all the guys, Pulak, that signing is the one that you're kind of going to question because I don't think he's panned out to the extent that the Islanders
hope. I don't think they've used him right in the last 2 years.
No, but on the flip side, you're getting a ton more out of Dobson, you probably thought, and Romanov has been very good. Look, Robin Salo eventually ended up getting a full-time spot on the blue line. Yeah. So, and you know what that bottom six will give you? You're not going to get a ton of production. I mean, the thing you'd like to see, J.G. Pajot has not done a ton for that team, and especially given what he's making. And the problem is they also don't have a lot of cap flexibility because of the contracts that Lamoriello have given out. So, but if Nelson continues to play as he has and is that solid second-line center that they need, I still think they may have enough, and especially if Sorokin keeps playing the way he has.
Now, I have to counter Jan's fantasy mention with the fact that Ilya Sorokin was my first-round draft pick in my Stratomatic league. So, right now he's got a 9.
You rail on me, but You're not saying a word to him.
I
Russ.
didn't
Thanks.
realize
I'm
you
shaking
Russ
my
did.
head.
It wasn't
What
me.
else am I supposed to do?
I didn't say a goddamn thing. It was Russ. No, but
I will say this though. I did notice, and I didn't watch a lot of this game because I was watching the World Series and the Ranger game. I did flip through the Islander game. There was somebody talking to from the Islanders in Binnington's ear before he bumped Sorokin. So you say something to Binnington, that's what's going to happen in return. And who knows? Binnington could have been in the wrong the whole time, but someone whispered in his ear before they went to the Islanders locker room.
But the book is out on Binnington. It's basically you can get underneath his skin, and he responds. So I think teams are doing that on purpose. The other game.
Hold on. I wanted to also say that I still look right now. The Islanders are playing good hockey, and the Blues are sinking. So they won a game that they definitely needed to win, and I think Sorokin's really helping to lead them. And Jan said all those other things. The other thing that I don't understand is how Islander fans are railing that Barzal doesn't have a goal. Who cares? He has 11 points in 11 games. If you're looking for him to get goals for you, don't look. He's going to generate more offense. He's generating more offense with the new coach. That's what you should be happy about.
I mean, I agree. I mean, right now, I think that they're getting the Islanders are getting fantastic goaltending out of Sorokin, and that's the main consideration. Now,
Joe said that was Brock Nelson who whispered it in his ear.
Okay, well, like I said, the book is out on Binnington. Now, the other game was the Edmonton Oilers, and please believe me that every time the Edmonton Oilers lose, I rub my hands with glee.
This was a special kind of loss, though.
Yeah, two goals late in the third period. With the Oilers leading 3-2, the Devils are red hot right now, Jan. Tonight it was last night it was Stuart Skinner that gave up the goals late in the third period. But Jack Campbell hasn't exactly been George Vezina or Terry Sawchuk for them. But they're still 7-4, but the Devils are now 8-3, and like everything. Miles Wood scored 2 goals, and it's a miracle Miles Wood is actually in the lineup because he's been out for a couple years. But what do you think of the Devils right now, the way they're playing?
So it's interesting being in New York. The calls for Lindy Ruff's head have died down a little bit with this 8-3 start. Now, I won't put everything on him, but talent-wise, they have a fairly good amount of young talent, right? Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, who's very, very, very underrated and unknown outside of NHL circles, but Bratt's a heck of a player that people don't talk about enough, right? You look at what you're getting of Sharon Govich. You look at the blue line also now. That's only going to get better given the guys that they've drafted over the last couple of years. I mean, David Severson was the guy last year. They got Dougie Hamilton. They're getting solid goaltending from the pairing. Vitek Vanacek has been pretty good, and Mackenzie Blackwood has been healthy this year, which he wasn't
last night and came out, though. That's
right. And you talked about, right, I have Skinner. Skinner has been much better than Campbell. I wouldn't put the loss on him. Look, New Jersey has got talent. The question is when they would coalesce and would they be able to stop enough pucks to be able to allow their offense to take hold? And that's what's happened now. You've gotten solid goaltending from the 2 guys that they brought in Vanacek, and obviously because Washington moved on from him. And you had Blackwood pretty much all of last year, but was very good as his rookie campaign. You look at those guys and you look at the offense around him. They're going to be tough out. I mean, the East. I mean, the Rangers, the Devils, and the Islanders are all going to be battling. And there are guys who, used to making the playoffs that are going to be in a very significant battle this year, given the increased talent that exists in the Metro with the Devils being a much better team than they were the last 2 years.
Yeah, I'll say this. I mean, the Bratt deal, we all said the Devils are going to get killed on that, and they are. They kicked that can down the road. He's having a career year. Good luck with that contract because now you're going to pay max on that.
They should have gone the extra mile to get the long-term deal done, and they didn't. And now they're going to pay through the nose for it.
They are. We'll give that credit because he really liked the Vanacek signing, thought he could be the number 1, and
don't give him credit for it.
Even before the injury last night, I did feel like Vanacek was stealing the number 1 spot. I had said it on Sirius. He had won 3 games. Or I said it on Locked On Flyers. I think that's what it was. And he had won 3 games. Now this is, I think, his 4th. And he came in for Blackwood, and he got the win on this one. Blackwood, that injury looked a little worrisome from the lower body perspective. So I don't know how that's going to work out for him. But Vanacek's their guy at the moment. The only thing, and everything's going right. Like everything's the Miles Wood goal was beautiful. Everything looks good offensively and defensively. It's good enough. It's still going to come down to goaltending, whether Vanacek could handle the load and be like the 65 to 70%, because that's what they're going to need. Like a guy who plays 70% of those games. If they could do that, they will have a really good season. But I don't know if Vanacek can do that. I'm not.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him. Like somebody was saying, they'll probably call up Nico Dawes, who played last year. But the problem is that you need a superior defense, or at least adequate defense. And I mean, I don't know if I buy into the Devils playing adequate defense in front of their goaltenders. They're really tough on their goalies. That's why I think Blackwood gets hurt all the time. So, I mean, we'll see if they can do that. I mean, they have the offensive talent. They
have offense and speed. Like they really, really do. Like Bratt is super fast. Hughes, obviously. Listen, I mean, Eric Holla is filling a role for them. So, I'm not going to kill him on that. And defensively, things are looking good as far as puck movement. And I think those are the keys. We'll see what they do with Severson. That's going to be another thing that be interesting.
And Graves. Severson and Graves are both.
Graves, I think he's played well, but I don't think he's played well enough that they're going to worry. To me, they should keep Severson, but if they trade him, teams are going to clamor for him because he does everything well, and he could get more points than last year was a good year for points, but he's a 45-point guy.
And he's right-handed. I know that there have been rumors about Toronto being interested in him. If they end up trading him, the Leafs with their cap space might be interested in him with the Muzzin situation, and we don't know. Again, we don't know what's going on with Muzzin. Just some quick hits on some of the games last night. Then we'll take some questions in the chat. So put the questions in there. The Hurricanes beat Tampa Bay 4-3 in a shootout. Tampa Bay now is 6-4-1. They're not playing particularly well. I parachuted in on that game. Russ, I just look at the Lightning right now. Is this Stanley Cup hangover because they've had these deep runs 3 years in a row?
Yeah, I just don't think their defense is good enough. They give up a lot of chances. Vasilevsky, if they didn't have Vasilevsky, if you were looking at another goalie in there, they would give up another goal and a half a game on average. They just
right.
And so I think he's keeping him in it with his greatness. I'm trying to make it a little lighter in here. It's hard.
Yeah.
The weather. It's nice out. Yeah. He stays with it with his greatness, but their defense just gives up way too many chances. It's good on puck movement. It's bad on defense. I don't think their bottom six is what it used to be after it got broken up and everything else. Look, Ross Colton's become an extremely important guy for them. And he's a nice player, but it does kind of scream to their lack of depth too.
Thank God I drafted him too.
Because I told you to.
No, I brought up the name. You just confirmed it. So the Vegas Golden Knights, the train kept a rolling. They're now 10-2. They beat the Senators 5-4 last night. 5 goals on Anton Forsberg, Russ. The thing now, I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything about when Talbot's coming back, but I think that and they're not like way out of it. But
Forsberg's doing what Forsberg does in my mind. I wanted him to play 500 while Talbot was gone, and he can't do it. And I know they were super high on Forsberg, like they figured that's why they gave him a deal, right? Would they give him a 3-year deal or something?
Yeah, it was a 2-year.
2-year deal. Yeah, again, he's letting them down because they're pretty good, but if they're not going to get good enough goaltending until Talbot's back, they're going to have an uphill season, which I wasn't expecting.
You were right. 3-year, $2.75 million, which is basically backup, high-end backup money. But I'm sorry, like he had a good half season, and I will never buy into Anton Forsberg as a good goaltender, but
no, me neither.
It's not a major investment, so I get it. But Red Wings beat the Capitals last night 3-1. Capitals reportedly are looking for forward help. This was according to Pierre LeBrun. After the season end, you're muted.
That's because TJ Oshie's out indefinitely. I don't know what his injury is.
And Connor Brown is out for the year with the ACL tear. So the rumor is they might be in on one of the bevy of extra Montreal forwards. LeBrun was saying Drouin, Dadonov, Mike Hoffman are all potentially on the market.
I go Dadonov with them because they have enough Russians there that might work. Hoffman just worries me. He disappears.
Yes.
I would say though, they brought up Milano. Give him a chance.
Yeah, well, supposedly McClellan, their GM, said in the short term that they're going to try to address things internally. But if
he doesn't wait long. He's not a guy that really goes with the young talent. Connor McMichael has managed to keep his way in that lineup. But listen, they're in a tough spot. I'm sure the Flyers would love to trade him JVR. If they were smart, they'd do it. But yeah, I know, but he'll be back in a couple weeks.
The $7 million. I'm sorry, the $7 million cap.
I know that's the problem.
Yeah. The Seattle Kraken are now 6-4-2. They shut out the Minnesota Wild 4-0. I have to say, okay, I'm not surprised. The Kraken, the Shane Wright stuff aside, the Kraken are playing well early on. But the Wild, Russ, I thought this team was. I knew that they'd be hurting a little bit after trading Fiala, but I thought that some of the young kids would step up. And right now they're struggling early on.
Yeah, look, Shane Wright can't crack in the everyday lineup. I look at it and I don't understand what's going on with the Wild. Fleury just got goalie of the week too last week, so I don't know. I did watch the Morton Geeky goal. That was nice. Alexiak has 3 goals. I don't know what's the most he's ever scored for goals. I don't think he's
probably 6 or 7.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever had double digits.
Wright played last night for the first time in 5 games. Of course, probably his grandparents.
Oh, they're long gone, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now, I think it was Darren Drager that reported that Wright can be loaned to the American Hockey League if he's scratched for 5 straight games. But it's only basically like a 2-week conditioning stint.
Yeah, but that just prolongs it. Yeah.
Right. But what I think is going to happen here is that, like we said yesterday, I can see him getting loaned to Hockey Canada for the World Junior, and they just have to get to early December. So, they scratch him 4 games, 5 games in a row. Right. They send him to the minors. They call him back. They send him to Hockey Canada.
It's not a great year for development, though.
Yeah, no, it's a waste. But maybe they think that him going back to the OHL is a waste. So I don't.
Well, I think to some degree they might be right, but it's still, no pun intended. But it's still better to play than not to play. And
it's still not right. Yes. So Blackhawks beat the Kings 2-1 in overtime. Blackhawks, if their plan was to bottom out for Connor McDavid or Connor Bedard, it's not going well right now. Jason Dickinson continues to light it up, and Jonathan Taves, and Russ knows the story about me and Jonathan Taves right now, and again in my league where somebody stole him from me. Jonathan Taves has 7 goals.
Yeah, so, I'm happy to see his resurgence. It's interesting that it's happening. The funny thing about Dickinson is I always liked him, and he is just, I think, that typical power forward type that took some time. He was starting to develop the last year or two. We had talked a little bit more about Dickinson, and he always had a great shot, and he always had pretty good speed. And so, at the age of 27 now, it's sort of kicking in because he's getting the actual ice time opportunity. I'm sure he's getting power play time, and all those things matter, man. That's half the reason some of these guys don't develop.
This Black Friday, take up to 50% off award-winning Ghost Bath adjustable base bundles.
That's all right. Mike's listening to, I'm not sure. I think Mike was listening to a workout channel there, like where they're doing aerobics or yoga. Was that a hot yoga channel, Mike? Is that what that was?
I was opening Cap Friendly, and all of a sudden Cap Friendly's got audio ads on it, which makes
that's always nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Cap Friendly. Now I have to. But anyway. Now a couple other games. Predators beat the Flames 4-1. Apparently, Daryl Sutter is not happy with the Flames' defensive play. Shock. The Vancouver Canucks win 8-5 against Anaheim
in a game totally devoid of defense.
Yes. Bo Horvat, talk about salary drive. Okay, Bo Horvat has 10 goals in
Yeah, trade
11
him.
games.
Trade him.
You should.
I would trade him.
Andre Kuzmenko had a hat trick for them, so he's looking like,
That's a big deal. I didn't think he would be that good, but it's early. Yuri DePita had some goals early for the Flyers too. I would just say this: if Bo Horvat's got 10 goals for him, trade him, man.
You're not going to trade him now, but
I'll trade him whenever somebody calls for him.
Dallas Stars beat the Coyotes 7-2. Jason Robertson with a couple goals. Wyatt Johnston, excuse me, had his 4th of the year. He is staying with the Stars, so he is not being sent back to junior. And
I'm just happy he's staying, so Tony Soprano could stop asking me about it every other day. Is he staying? I said he was staying the one time, but it's like I got tired of him asking me.
Well, I don't think the OHL was going to be a challenge for him when he had 153 points or something like that. So.
Yeah.
And the Panthers beat the Sharks 4-3.
In the shootout, right? Actually.
Was it a shootout? That was a shootout. It was a shootout.
Yeah, that one went to a shootout. So the Sharks managed a point. I do think we need to point something out, and I noticed this at the beginning of the year, and we have all maybe given up hope that Erik Karlsson could be traded. He's having a good year, Mike. He looks really good out there.
Anybody who trades for him is a sucker. I mean,
Listen,
don't get me wrong. He's having a great start, and he's definitely benefiting from the additional ice time and power play.
Make an NBA
right. But he's got 4 more years at 11.5.
Find some other bad contract.
They'd have to eat a lot of it.
Right. Let them eat a lot of it and trade for somebody else who maybe has 3 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I don't know if I see a fit out there. I mean, maybe there is. Is Montreal going to trade Mike Matheson again? I mean,
but I mean that is the kind of team that could get him, easily fit him under the cap, and get that talent. Because if all of a sudden Erik Karlsson's going to start playing better, it's pretty good. And then, as Tony Soprano points out, that would help the tank for Bedard too if they get rid of him.
Now I'm going to risk the sound here.
Oh no! Don't do it.
I want to open up something just to see if I can find out without the sound kicking in. And there he goes. There it goes again. Let me see if I can. There we go. Okay.
Mike, also we need to point out Erik Karlsson has 10 goals as well.
Yeah, no, I know. He's second second or third in the league in scoring the way he's going right now. I mean, at least in goals. Okay. The chatter out there about Jake Muzzin is not good, and it hasn't been good since he was injured. It was a couple weeks ago against Arizona. Now it was Chris Johnston, who we're going to have on Off the Post on Sunday, who reported that Muzzin went to see a specialist in California regarding his neck injury, and everything neck obviously is tied to potential concussion, because we always hear it's a neck problem. Well, Sidney Crosby's neck problems were concussion related.
Yeah,
it tends to do that. So so right now there has been little chatter out of Toronto, and that's surprising. Little about his status, and essentially what might be how they're going to approach things if he's out for the year. And if he's out for the year, he may be out for the rest of his career. He's got 1 more year left in his contract. Next year, it's a $4 million cap hit with a $2 million bonus that's paid July 1st. So, it was a front-loaded deal. He opens up $5.6 million in cap space, but Russ, they need the player. So if the player's not available, then Dubas is going to have to go and do something. But they need the player more than they need the cap space.
Yeah, because it's hard to get a guy like Muzzin who checks off those types of boxes. It's easier, honestly, in this league, it's easier to get an offensive defenseman than an all-around defenseman. And one with some toughness. So you're right. They need that type of guy. It's going to be hard. I don't know, even at the deadline, if they can fill that, Mike. I mean, normally when you fill a guy like that at the deadline, it's always like Erica Branson or somebody like that.
It's going to be tough. And tomorrow they play the Bruins, and Timothy Liljegren has returned, and immediately, Russ, they have Timothy Liljegren playing on the top pairing with Morgan Riley. Last year he played second pairing minutes, third pairing minutes, and he was really good. He's a right shot defenseman. They didn't give a lot of time to Liljegren with Riley, and maybe they'll switch things around, but I do think they're going to give Liljegren an opportunity more than he's had over the last couple of years because there's a desperate need on the right side.
Yeah. And how confident are you about the Leafs beating Boston?
Not confident at all based on the way the Bruins are playing and based on the way the Leafs beat Philadelphia, but that's Philadelphia. If they give the Bruins 6 power plays like they gave the Flyers, they'll lose 6-2. They have to be more disciplined, and it's tough against the Bruins, who are a cheap shot team, but at least they have a reputation of being feisty, unquote. So we'll see. We'll see how many players Brad Marchand submarines we
didn't talk about it. The Braden Schneider hit on Trent Frederick was a totally clean hit, and he just blew him up. And Schneider's a strong guy. He understands leverage. But again, the Bruins, jumped into it after that and came to Frederick's defense. And a lot of us are kind of getting tired of teams defending against clean hits. If it's dirty hits, I get it, but these are clean hits. Why are you doing that? So, if anybody on the Leafs does a clean hit tomorrow, Mike, it's going to turn into
it'll be a shit show. It will be. Let's start with some questions here. Please put them in the chat. We'll go for 15 minutes on this. Esmir, what is your opinion of Timo Meier? Do you think the Sharks will trade him for future picks and prospects?
Yeah, he's getting traded. I do like him.
He's got 8 points in 13 games. He's coming off a 35-goal year.
But what are you prepared to give up? Are you going to give up Dawson Mercer? Are you going to, they're going to want one big name in this trade.
Oh, yeah, you're talking from the Devils' perspective?
From the Devils, well, Esmir's a Devils guy. So, and I saw people asking, could the Devils get him? And so, he's the first guy that comes to mind. And then, even like a Graham Clark and some picks isn't enough. So they're going to have to give up.
It's okay. If he's a rental, there's no way they're getting that much. It's probably
but if they have a beat on signing him,
right?
That could change that, and that's what I'm thinking is.
Is Jesper Bratt from Switzerland?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so is Timo Meier. I mean, that might be the reason why the Swiss miss putting the 2 Swiss guys together.
I mean, here I'll give you a trade because the Sharks would like this guy. You want to trade Seamus Casey and a couple of picks? They probably do it. It's
probably, I'll bet you anything, it's probably a prospect and a player on the NHL roster.
But if it's like Mercer, no. Okay, you're going to give me Alexander Holtz?
Yeah, Mercer's too much.
Right, you're going to give me Alexander Holtz? I mean, they could get Holtz. They'll do that with Holtz and just a pick. Yeah.
Yeah, Holtz and a number 1.
He's Swedish. Okay, yeah, right. He's Swiss.
That's Swedish? Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's where I get him confused. He's right.
Let's see here. Well, attach this. Can San Jose afford to keep Meier? No. I mean, especially if they get into a situation like what it was with Hurdle last year, where they didn't know, they kept him instead of trading him at the deadline. But I think they had an inside line on him staying. But this instance, it doesn't sound. And the thing is, you're a team right now that is so laden with long-term contracts and is not going anywhere. You cannot sign anybody long-term. You've got to clear out over the next couple of years. You've got to clear out Vlasic. You got to clear out Couture. You got to clear out Carlson, and make room for the young guys, because it's crippling how much they have long-term in terms of contracts that are just not working. Not at all. Let's see here. Okay, questions. Let's see here. With the Muslin Chatter, would Vladislav Gavrikov from Columbus be a fit for the Leafs?
He'd be a great fit.
Yeah, right hand shot.
I like him a lot. I've talked about him because I feel like Columbus, at one point before they got Gaudreau, were focusing on extending him. Now I don't think they are focused on extending him. So I do think he'll be out there. And, yeah, that's a good pickup. he might even be a guy, if he works out, the Leafs could extend him because he's
Labushkin like in the sense
a little better. I think he's
a little better. Higher. He's a top 4 right-hand shot, $2.8 million contract. Never going to help you offensively, but solid. Yeah, no, I think now, it's early on, and I don't think Columbus is already. And that's the thing with all the talk.
Yeah, they're not going to bail this early.
Yeah, that's the thing about all the talk with the Leafs in terms of defensemen. Nobody, even the teams that are bottoming out, are trading defensemen right now. Nobody. Yeah. They're going to wait until probably not even American Thanksgiving. You're probably going to wait until after Christmas as you get closer to the deadline, and you get and basically whether your team is in contention. So I don't know.
I would argue with Randy here, who's saying if the Flames are willing to trade Shillington, they're not going to be willing to trade him if you got your coach complaining about defense. They're not trading any defenseman.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. How sustainable is Gabriel Velarde's start goals wise?
He'll cool off a little bit, but this is a big guy with a good shot who has had a horrible injury history.
Yeah.
He never lacked talent. So I've been waiting for him to sort of be able to do this. So I think it's mostly sustainable.
Yeah. He's got 13 points in 13 games, 8 goals right now.
Yeah.
Let's see here. How about Zaitsev covering the I didn't see the penalty, so
no, I didn't either.
And Barticus, I'm sorry, nobody in their right mind is taking that contract. I think he's got another year.
Yeah, he does. I think.
It's nuts. And one of the few moves that, and I think that was Lou was getting rid of Zaitsev, or was it Lou? No, I think it was Dubas. Zaitsev, he's got another year at $4.5 million. Lou was the guy who signed him to the contract.
Yeah, that was bad signing.
Yeah,
although to be fair, he was doing very well at the time.
Yeah, but then Babcock decided to make him from a power play quarterback to a two-way defenseman, which was dumb.
Yeah.
Which is dumb. Let's see here. Brad is Swedish. Thank you. Let's see here. If the Flames are willing to trade Shillington,
I just talked about this. Next question.
Oh, you Shillington?
Yeah.
We talked about Gavrikov, not Shillington.
No, Shillington. I addressed Randy. Next question.
Okay, I didn't see that. Sorry about that. Okay. No, okay, that's about it. Okay. Yep, we covered as much as we could. You asked the questions, we answered them, knocked them off.
Oh, goalie FPL answer about Patrick Kane. It'll be at the deadline if they get him.
Yes, but okay. I was going to ask this. We didn't think it was possible for Taves to get traded. If he's scoring like this, he might be traded. Yeah, there might be. Now, again, Chicago.
Unless they're in it. What if the Blackhawks are in it? Then nobody's getting traded.
They're not.
I know.
They're not going to be in it. But that's the thing. It's like, okay, if you're a team that's looking for a second-line center and you got a guy who's won 3 Stanley Cups, now if they obviously would have to retain 50%, they can do that. I think on both of them. I'm pretty sure. Let me just check Chicago if they're retaining. I know they're retaining on Duncan Keith, but he retired, so that's not a salary retention anymore. That's cap recapture. Yeah, they haven't retained all the rest are buyouts. So they could retain on both Kane and Taves, and they probably would have to stay over the cap floor. Yeah. So they'll be willing to do that.
Yeah, I just want to also say I think all coaches are safe right now. I'm not even thinking about one that's going to get canned. I mean, Dallas Aikens might be the one, but again, if they're trying to tank, they're not going to can him. So I don't think anybody's in great danger at the moment.
Yeah, I just have to answer this. GSM, Riley isn't worth $7.5 million. You're friggin' clueless. You're really clueless because he is worth $7.5 million.
Not top money anymore.
Right. That's median salary for a top pairing defenseman. And nobody is saying that Morgan Riley is not a top pairing defenseman. He is. He's a good power play quarterback. He doesn't have a big shot.
Got 9 points in 11 games. He had 68 last year. He's on pace for another 60-something point year.
He's mobile. He's 27 years old. He's a 55 to 60 point defenseman, and he's a leader on that team. So
in his draft year with that knee surgery, the Leafs were lucky to get him. The team backed off on him, and he was always going to be a terrific defenseman. Always.
Yeah, remember that top 4. Number 1 was Yakupov. bust. Number 2 was Ryan Murray. Injuries killed him, bust. Number 3 was Alex Galchenyuk. He got his brain screwed over by the Canadians because they wanted to make him into a center when probably he could have been a good NHL winger, bust. Number 4, Griffin Reinhart, next. And number 5, Morgan Riley. It's funny. Brian Burke said when he drafted him, he was the number 1 pick in the draft and number 1 on their board. And that was 10 years ago, and he was right.
I like Dumba a little better. I still like Dumba because of his physicality. And he has more goals, believe it or not.
And you know what? I'm glad you mentioned Dumba because of, we talked about Severson. Dumba's a UFA at the end of the year.
Yeah.
If Minnesota,
a big pickup for somebody.
If Minnesota is out of it, and maybe even if they're not out of it, maybe if they don't know they can't sign him because
he's a right shot.
Yeah, they've got that $14 million in dead money from Suter and Parise. It might be a guy that they trade. So I mean, we'll see what Bill Guerin does.
Hampus Lindholm was that next defenseman before Dumba, so it's pretty good. Riley, it went from Riley, Lindholm, Dumba. Yeah. That's pretty damn good. And then Trouba's 2 picks away. That's guys with more than 500 and 600 games in this league. That's pretty good defense. That went in the first round.
Yeah,
or top 10.
All right, great job, guys. We'll be back. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, for the departed Jan Levine, I'm Mike Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.